Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Please excuse my voice, it's a little hoarse. I've had a cold over the last couple of days. I'm going to try to get through this video without driving you insane with my voice. This is part 2 of the February Bargain Bead Box 2023 edition. So in this video today, we're going to have one intricate design. I will do a full video on this piece. Plus I have really simple designs in here as well. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's going to be good for anybody at any level. Without further ado and any more talking, we're going to get into this video. Okay, for my first piece, my beautiful bangle bracelet. You know that I love bangle bracelets. So this one here was made with the 10mm amethyst beads. That's these ones here. That's number 2 on your list. 8.5 by 4mm crystal drop beads. That's these ones here. Number 4 on your list. 6 by 4mm faceted rice beads. That is these green ones here. Number 11 on your list. And the 40mm 21 gauge eye pins in stainless steel. That's number 9 on your list. And each one of these, like here, is made with the eye pin. Eye pin is here. So each one of these sequence of beads here. Number 13 on your list, I used one of the 10 by 15mm dragonfly spacer beads, and that would be this guy here. Just something different for the back of it. Number 16 on your list would be the 6.5 by 5mm 5-petal bead caps, and I use these bead caps to go over the 10mm amethysts, each one of them. And for the curb chain, if you watched my first video, the part 1, you'll remember that I wasn't crazy about this chain, but it looks really pretty in this bracelet. And that's number 18 on your list, and that's the 4 by 3mm stainless steel curb chain. So I just used it to kind of encase these bigger 10mm beads. So each one. And there's 2 memory wire pieces right here. So this is memory wire in here, and that's the 21 gauge memory wire. I used some of that chain in the back just to finish the bracelet off. I think it just looks really nice with the chain there. 5mm jump rings, my own 5mm jump rings, and my own 11/0 seed beads. These are galvanized silver. And the reason I like using the galvanized silver beads is because they don't change color on your skin like if you wear the pieces a lot. I really, really like the way this one turned out. I love these bigger bracelets, bigger bangle style bracelets. Alright you guys, we are going to get into the tutorial for this one. I did a tutorial for this bracelet, so it's going to be a little bit longer. Hopefully my voice will hold up for as long as I need it to. So I'm just going to go over with you quickly the beads that I did use for this bracelet before we get into the tutorial. I used a 3mm faceted rainbow fluorite, and that's these little guys here. And I used some of them, I used a couple of them at the end as well, on either side. I used a 2.5 by 1.5mm crystal rondelles. That'll be these little guys in here. And then 4 on either side under the magnetic clasp. I used a 6 by 4mm crystal rondelles in violet mix. That's number 5 on your list. I'm sorry, the 2.5 by 1.5 crystal rondelles is number 3 on your list, the last one there. So number 5 on your list is a 6 by 4mm crystal rondelles in violet mix, and that's these guys here. The 6 by 4mm crystal rice beads, that's these guys here, the little green ones. And that is number 11 on your list. The faceted Malaysia jade beads, the 8mm, and that's these ones here. That's number 17 on your list. And from my own stash, I used the 50-no galvanized seed beads in here, and then the 11-os for the actual band. I was looking all over my stash to find proper clasp for the size of this band. I should have checked before. I actually did all this. I could not find one. I have used everything. So I decided to use my symbol magnetic clasp. This one here is from River Crystal Beads. And I do like the magnetic clasp, especially with my nails. It's easier to put the bracelets and pendants on, like necklaces on. So what I did was I centered it in the middle, and I had to use this style here just to finish this off so I could use this particular clasp because I didn't have anything else. But honestly, it looks really nice. Like, I like it. I like the way that it turned out. So we're going to get to the tutorial. So as you can see, I've beaded on 2 of the 8mm beads, followed by 4 of my 11-o seed beads and 2 of the smaller 3mm faceted rainbow fluorite. So you can see in the picture here how I put everything on, and I just created a circle. Then as you can see, I'm going down through the 8mm bead. From here you just start adding the 8mm beads, 1 11-o seed bead, 3mm faceted fluorite, and 1 11-o seed bead, and then you add the next 8mm bead along with, again, the 11-o, 3mm 11-o, and then go back down, creating another circle, and then you just keep adding on in this sequence until you get 6 of the 8mm faceted beads on here, with between each one the 11-o seed bead, 3mm faceted bead, and the 11-o seed bead between each of the 8mm beads. Here in this picture you can see I've gone up. I've added the 2.5 by 1.5mm crystal rondelle. I've gone through the 11-o, the 3mm, and the 11-o to add the next crystal rondelle, and you go all the way down to the other end, and then you add your last crystal rondelle, the smaller one. You go through the 8mm and you do that all the way back to the other side. And now I'm back to where I started on the top right. In this frame here, you can see that I've gone through that crystal, the 11-o seed bead, the 3mm crystal, and the 11-o seed bead. And then I add onto my needle and a 15-o seed bead, the 3mm crystal, 1 11-o seed bead, the rice bead, and 11-o seed bead, come back down through the rice bead, missing the 11-o seed bead. Now in this frame, the thread is kind of hidden behind the sequence of beads, the rice bead sequence, but I've added a crystal and a 15-o seed bead, and now I'm going back through the small crystal, 11-o seed bead, 3mm crystal, 11-o seed bead, small crystal, 11-o seed bead, 3mm crystal, and an 11-o seed bead to get ready for the next sequence. And you can see my thread is sitting on the left hand side of that 11-o seed bead. You're going to do this all over again with the rice bead, the 11-os, the 3mm crystals, and the 15-o seed beads. And as you can see here, I'm adding all those beads, going to go back down. And what I don't show you here, unfortunately, is that I miss that 2.5 by 1.5mm crystal rondelle to go through just the 11, like the 11-o, the 3mm, the 11-o, and then on to the next sequence of 11-o, 3mm, and 11-o. As you can see in this frame here, I've gone all the way across, adding that. I'm going down through the small crystal, the 8mm, and the other small crystal to the left of the screen. And what you're going to do is do exactly the same thing, but on the bottom side, until you get back to the right hand side here. Now what I've done to the right of the screen is I've gone up the 11-0, the crystal, the 11-0, the 3mm crystal, the 11-0, the rice bead, and I go through the first 11-0 on the top. Then I start adding the 6x4mm crystal rondelles. So you'll see that I add the one crystal rondelle, I go through the next 11-0, the next crystal rondelle, the next 11-0, and add the next crystal rondelle, and add 4 crystal rondelles between each 11-0 seed bead, as you see in this frame. And what you want to do is you want to go down all those beads again. So the rice bead, the 11-0s, the 3mm, the 15-0s, through the small crystal, the 8mm small crystal, and back down all the way to the rice bead, and sitting on the right hand side of that first rice bead on the bottom. And then you do the same thing again, adding your 6x4mm crystal rondelles, again, all the way across in between each of those 11-0s on top of the rice beads. What I've done here is I've gone through all those beads again to the right hand side, gone through the 11-0s and the rondelles all the way across, and I'm coming out that last rice bead. And then I add 2 15-0s, 2 11-0s, one of the small 2.5 by 1.5mm crystal rondelle, 2 11-0s, 2 15-0s, and I'm going to go back and bypass the first 11-0 from the rice bead, the rondelle, and into the next 11-0, just the next 11-0. And you do that all the way across until you get to the other side of this particular section here, and then you turn around and we start going back again, as you can see in this frame. Go back again, and in this frame I don't show you, but I go up through the first 2 15-0s, 2 11-0s, and that first crystal bead, so that my thread is coming out that right hand side of that little small crystal bead, and then add your 5 11-0 seed beads to go bypass and go through the next crystal bead on top of the next sequence of beads, as you can see in this frame here. Do that all the way across, and you should have 3 loops of 5 11-0 seed beads. Then when you come out the next crystal, the last crystal to the left of the screen, you add 2 11-0 seed beads, one of the crystals, and 2 11-0 seed beads, and go back and go through the third bead up. So that would be the middle bead of the 5 sequence of 11-0 seed beads, and you pull it tight, and you do that all the way across again till you hit the last one, and then you do the 2 11-0s, 1 crystal, 2 11-0s, and we go back through the crystal from the row before, as you can see in this shot here. Now we go down, and I'm showing you here in this next couple of frames how I'm going to make it back to where I need to be. So down through the 11-0 seed beads, the 2 11-0, heading down through the 15-0s, up through the other 2 15-0s and 11-0s, heading back up through the 3 11-0 seed beads, still heading back up to the right, and now I'm sitting on the outside of the last 11-0 seed bead, but I didn't go through that crystal bead. So this is where my thread is sitting now, ready for the next step. Now what you're going to do is bypass the first 11-0, add an 11-0 seed bead to your thread, miss the first seed bead, and go through the next 11-0 seed bead, as you can see of what I'm doing in this frame. Add an 11-0 seed bead, bypass the next seed bead, and go through the next seed bead, as you can see here in this frame. Then you add 11-0 seed bead, you should be going through the next crystal bead. You do that all the way across, and this is what it should look like. So you should have some beads sitting above other beads. You should have 3 beads in each section between the crystals sitting above. So now you should be sitting on the left hand side, sitting outside of that last crystal bead. Then you go down and go back through the 11-0 seed bead to the bottom, as you can see, because you want to make your way back to the top crystal bead. So I'm going to go down through this bead, and now I'm just going to fill in those holes with 11-0 seed beads all the way across. So then you start heading all the way across, filling in the gaps with the next 11-0 seed beads, and this will be the last seed bead of that row. As you can see, I'm taking that seed bead, my needle, and going through the last seed bead on that row. I'm going to turn around, add a seed bead, and go through the next seed bead, missing the first seed bead, and these seed beads are the ones that are sitting up above the other seed beads, so it's sitting up a little bit. You go all the way across. Now when you get to this point here, because you can't just add a seed bead and then go back. It's gonna screw up the pattern. So what I do is I'm sitting outside the last seed bead, as you can see in this frame. I added a seed bead to my thread, and then I go down through the bottom seed bead underneath that. As you can see, I'm coming down through that bottom seed bead and then go through the top seed bead just to the top of that. As you can see in here, you see my thread going through that top part, and then go back down the bottom one again, and then through the seed bead to get ready for the next row. Go all the way across and just continue, as you can see here. Now I'm just going to keep an eye on the measurement. So my middle beads, the 8 millimeters, are sitting at 3 3/4. My bracelet is going to be 7.5 inches in length. So I put it in the middle, and I just keep an eye as I'm making my band on how long I want my bracelet to be. So here, now that my band is done, and basically my symbol magnetic clasp is 1 inch from one side to the other. So it'd have to be 1/2 inch on one side, 1/2 inch on the other side. When you're measuring your bracelet, just keep that in mind, that you always have to make room for whatever clasp that you're going to use. So just always, as you're making your bracelet, keep track of the measurement and what you want your bracelet to be. Here you can see I'm adding 11/0 seed bead, a 3 millimeter crystal, an 11/0 seed bead, and I'm going through the one corner of my symbol magnetic clasp. Then I miss the first 11/0 seed bead that's sticking up and go back through the opposite direction of the next 11/0 seed bead that's sticking up, as you can see here in this frame. Then you pull your thread up, go back through the first 11/0 seed bead and the symbol again. Then you put an 11/0 seed bead on your needle, and then you go through the next 11/0 seed bead that's sticking up, and you go all the way across, adding your 11/0 seed bead to fill in the little gap between the other 11/0 seed beads till you get to the last seed bead before the space there. You add your 11/0 seed bead, go through that last seed bead, as you can see in the frame here, then go through the 11/0 seed bead of the gap, so the one below that. Go through the two 11/0 seed beads below, as you can see where my thread is going, because you want to come back around. As you can see, I'm going back around now. Now I'm going through the next seed bead on the last row, but I'm coming back and going around and down again with my needle. And now I'm adding the 11/0 seed bead, the crystal and 11/0 seed bead, and I'm adding the other side of my symbol with my needle. As you can see here where my thread is sitting, now I'm ready to add my little crystals. And I just start adding my crystals in between the little spaces of the 11/0 seed beads, all the way across till I've got 4 in there. And then I just start weaving my way through all these beads and tie it off. And then you just do exactly the same thing on the other side to create your bracelet. I'll just remind you that if you use a magnetic clasp like this one, just make sure that if you put this one to this side facing down, this one should be facing up. Now for this type of bracelet, I did make it almost identical to just slightly larger than my actual wrist. I don't want this type of bracelet to be too big. I find that these ones here with this type of wrap don't look good if they're too big. So, but I do like the way that it turned out. So when thinking about using the great big 42 by 21 millimeter amethyst teardrop swirl pendant, that's this one here, number 14 on your list, I just didn't want to leave it, just throw it on a chain and call it a day. You know me, I like to be a little more extravagant with my pieces and always adding different things, making them look unique. And this actually turned out really nice. As you can see on the stand, it actually looks really, really good with this encased around it. So use these 6x4 millimeter crystal rice beads. That's these ones here, number 11 on your list. the 6x4mm crystal rondelles and violet mix, number 5 on your list. And I just went back and forth all the way around on my memory wire. Now you can make as big a memory wire as you want. Basically, I took an 8-inch piece of memory wire. I did my little loop here, and I just added the ones that I needed till I liked the size of it. So you could have it bigger or even smaller if you wanted. I just wanted an even amount of space approximately around this pendant here. And then I added it to the curb chain. And because this is free moving, it doesn't really matter where you put it on there, but you do want it to be a little bit tighter because as it gets worn, like when you're wearing it, it is gonna sit down like this a little bit. And then I just used my 5mm jump rings to put that all together. And then for this chain, I did use the toggle clasp that they had sent. They only sent one. So this is the 16x12mm platinum plated Dragonfly toggle clasp. Now and this is number 8 on your list. Now the only problem I had with this is they only provided one jump ring. So this is the jump ring that they provided. I had to use my own 5mm jump ring to add this portion of the toggle clasp because these were actually attached. And then I just used up the rest of my curb chain. So a very nice, very simple piece that you can do, and it looks pretty. It looks really nice when it's sitting up on the stand. So for this piece, I've always wanted the type of chain or pendant that I could just put on my neck and be done with it. It didn't have to worry. Maybe you're wearing a nice little black dress with a very deep neckline. This looks beautiful for that situation. And it's easy. It's so easy to make, and it looks really beautiful. So I used the 10mm amethyst bead. That's this one here. That's the last one I had left. I used the 5-petal bead caps on either side of that bead. Number 16 on your list. This is number 2 on your list. I used the 6x4mm crystal rondelle and violet mix, and I used 2 of those. I used 40mm 21 gauge stainless steel eye pin. So one of those in here to hold all this together. Number 11 on your list. And you were probably wondering about the 21 by 13.5mm amethyst teardrop pendant. I decided to use it with this piece here. I had been thinking about earrings because they gave us 2, but I'm like, no, these got to be with something else, and it actually worked out really nice with the other piece that I did from part 1 and this one here. And then I used one of the 10 by 15mm dragonfly spacer bead, this one here. Between each one of my 2 beads, I used the 8mm frosted crackle agates. That's number 15 on your list, and these are stunning. They're so pretty, really, really pretty. And then this is just one big piece of memory wire. This is actually bracelet memory wire. I didn't have the actual bigger, circle of memory wire that makes the necklace. So the reason I used these ones here, these 2 beads, was just to hold it out more. And you can do that. I find with the 2 beads, and then you just bend it a little bit all the way around until you get the perfect circle and the size that you want. And it turns out beautifully, and it sits perfectly, on your neck. And then you used a little rice bead as well here with 21 gauge half round wire to attach to the other side here. And here's a little close-up. This is very pretty. I think it looks really nice on this piece. And I had to put something here. I mean, you have to have something there to finish it off, right? These are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beads. I love the crackle agates. I have lots of these crackle agates in a bunch of different colors. I just love them. And then for these 13.5 by 20 stainless steel laser cut charms, I knew immediately these were going to be earrings. They're very nice and light. They're very pretty. These are number 6 on your list. I used the 6x4mm faceted rondelles. So that's these ones on your list, the 2. Number 5 on your list. 6x4mm crystal rice beads. So those green ones there. And I put everything together with the 40mm 21 gauge stainless steel eye pins. As you can see here on top, I didn't cut the eye pin. I just wrapped it around with my pliers instead of cutting it. And then used my own ear wires to put everything together for a cute little pair of earrings. These earrings here you could wear with any one of the pieces that were made here today. So this is the amount of chain, the curved chain that I had left. So I just cut the piece in half. Just put my little dragonfly spacer beads on the bottom using the eye pins. So the dragonfly spacer beads are 13 on your list. The 40 millimeter 21 gauge eye pins are number 9 on your list. And then I just use the curved chain to put everything together, number 18 on your list. And I used my own ear wires and my own 5 millimeter jump rings to do that. And I really like the way these turned out. I love these little dragonfly earrings. And again, something that could go with any of the pieces that were done here today. And just a recap of what was in February's Part 1 Bargain Bead Box 2023. It was this pendant here. If you go check out that video, you will see a small tutorial on how to make this beautiful pendant. I just love this. Any of the bracelets or earrings can also go with this pendant as well. Head on over to Part 1 and check out that video as well. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope the tutorials were easy to follow along. I would love to see if you try the bracelet. Please let me know. Tag me on Instagram. I would love to see them. Don't forget to like this video. If you did like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified of upcoming videos. Don't forget to head over to my website as well. Sign up for the newsletter. And there will also be information on upcoming videos, patterns that are new. Whatever might be pertaining to this channel will also be there as well for you. You guys have a great day, and I would love to see you back here when I'm feeling better and my voice is clear next time. Have a good one.